Hello everyone, welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. My name is Shubham Sagar. In today's news of the day, we'll talk about proposed changes to Waqf law. Now, this particular article has a lot of political connotation, but we need to read it. Why? Because in GS paper 1, when you talk about UPSC GS means paper 1, you have something called as secularism, social empowerment. Then in GS paper 2, you have government policies and scheme. And here we will be talking about Waqf Amendment Bill. 2024. Apart from that, Waqf is a word, terms, and terms have been asked by UPSC and pre. So there are certain things, there are certain areas which we need to know. And sometimes what happens when these kind of controversial news, so-called controversial news comes, you tend to skip it. But when it is a news like for 7, 8, 10 days, then you have to read it, that what is happening, why there are so many opposition to the amendment bill, and why this particular news is in, like, what is the context behind this particular news. So let's talk about it. Questions related to secularism, tolerance, assimilation has been asked by UPSC in mains, and this is a question of UPSC 2022. So what is the context? This Waqf Amendment Bill 2024, it has been referred to a joint committee because there were certain oppositions. So what happened? Now it will be going to joint committee, it will be reviewing it more, and then it will be coming to Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha again. So here, what are the things which are important from exam perspective? What are the different provisions of Waqf Amendment Bill, which, like, the oppositions were saying that this is like unconstitutional rather, or anti-minority or divisive. We'll try to understand those provisions. The more important fact here is, what is Waqf? What is the meaning of the term Waqf? UPSC has asked earlier, Fanam, etc. So you should be knowing about what is Waqf, what is the basic criteria associated with Waqf. Fine. And what was the original act? Like Waqf Act of 1995, this amendment bill will be like trying to amend it, as the name suggests. So you should be knowing the original act. Let's say we talk about Right to Information Act, Right to Education Act. So we should be knowing that Right to Information Act 2005, Right to Education Act 2009. We should be knowing the original year. Similarly, Waqf Act of 1995, we should be knowing it. Now, the major question related to this article, what is a Waqf property? So a Waqf is a personal property given by Muslims for, there are three purposes: religious, charitable or private purposes, with ownership implied to be with God. That means Allah is the owner of that particular property which has been assigned the status of Waqf. So Waqf can be established through a deed orally. Even if I'm saying that this is your property now, you can use it for charitable, religious or private purpose, this is a Waqf. Even orally if I'm saying it, that means it is a Waqf property. And here you will be seeing certain changes introduced by government or amendments proposed by government. And once declared, the Waqf, this thing is also very important. This particular third point is also very important. Once you have declared, let's say I have declared that this property is Waqf, then it cannot be reversed. It cannot be made non-Waqf. Now government is saying that no, there has to be like transfer, or it can be reversed. So there are certain amendments. Then what happens? There are different Waqf boards in states, and Waqf boards will be deciding the disputes related to Waqf property. And if the issue escalate further, there is a tribunal. Now what is happening in the proposed amendments? Central government is saying that collector will be looking into the issue. So in a way, certain political parties are saying that you're undermining the status of the current Waqf tribunal by introducing collector into the whole issue. And there are other issues also, like there is a Waqf board. In that, government is saying that they will be introducing some non-Muslim people, and again political parties and other people or other groups are objecting to that as well. So we should be knowing about the amendments. That is important from exam perspective. Again, two areas are included here: government policies and scheme, and second is Indian society and social justice. So what are the different amendments on which there are opposition? Section 3A, again, you don't need to remember each and every section per se. Just try to understand the core attribute: reversible, irreversible, what is a Waqf property. So 3A introduces a requirement that Waqf properties, before I tell you these, let's understand one thing. Government is of the opinion that there are certain government lands which has been given or deemed the status of Waqf, and they want to take those land back. And according to some political experts, that's why this particular amendment bill has been introduced. So now let's come back to the amendment. Section 3A introduces a requirement that Waqf properties must be lawfully owned and capable of being transferred or dedicated by the owner. Go back to the previous slide. See the word here, irreversible. Once a particular property has been assigned the status of Waqf, it will be a Waqf. Now, Section 3A is saying that no, it can be made non-Waqf. It can be transferred, or it can be like dedicated by the owner. So this criteria should not be so rigid that Waqf cannot be like reversed. Section 3C Clause A, or Clause 1 rather, states that government property identified as Waqf before or after the Act's commencement will not be deemed as Waqf property. I've told you that one of the major reason why government has introduced this amendment bill, according to some political expert, is government feels like there are certain government lands which has been assigned the status of Waqf. So section 3C clause 1 is dealing with that fact. If it has been a government land which has been assigned the status of Waqf, so it will not be deemed as Waqf property. Again, irreversible concept has been violated to a certain extent. 3C2 empowers the government via the collector to determine if a property given as Waqf is government land. So earlier, tribunal was deciding all these things, whether the property is like Waqf or not Waqf. Now, collector has been introduced here. And again, certain people, political parties or experts are objecting to that. Audit powers. The central government is given authority to direct audits of any Waqf property at any time. So again, some political experts are saying that too much central government interference is here, like involved in this Waqf property, which was not the case earlier. So presumption and redefinition of Waqf property. The bill assumes that some government land is incorrectly deemed Waqf property requiring government intervention. So hope you are understanding why this particular amendment bill was introduced. Waqf board. We have talked about that. Let's say there are some issues related to Waqf lands. So state appointed bodies acts as custodian of Waqf properties. Separate boards of Shia and Sunni communities, right? And there are different powers related to them. Disputes are, now pay attention here. Disputes are handled by a Waqf tribunal constituted by the state government. Bill proposes allowing non-Muslim CEOs and adding at least 2 non-Muslim members to state Waqf board. Collector, in the previous slide we have seen, which is interfering with the Waqf tribunal. Non-Muslim CEOs and 2 non-Muslim members, people are objecting to that also, that this is a religious body. Anyway, matter related to religion should be dealt in a very sensitive manner. And some people feel like certain amount of sensitivity is missing here when you are introducing non-Muslim CEOs and non-Muslim members here. Again, I'm not saying it, political experts are saying it. So what are the points of contention? Let's pay attention here. The proposed changes, such as altering the process of determining Waqf property, who will be determining whether it is a Waqf land or not? What will be the power of collector? All these things. Introducing stricter ownership criteria, redefining the composition of Waqf board, where you are introducing non-Muslim people, have sparked controversy, particularly among opposition party and minority communities. And that's why it has been sent to joint committee. These stakeholders argue that amendments could undermine the autonomy and religious rights of the Muslim community. So that's why we are having this discussion. See, it's not about who is right, who is wrong. We should be knowing about the terms from exam perspective. What is a Waqf property? What are the arguments regarding the proposed amendment, and what are those amendments? That's what we are talking about. So what is the conclusion here? The Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 represents a significant shift in the governance and regulation of Waqf properties in India, moving control from community-led Waqf boards to state governments and collectors, in a way undermining the Waqf tribunal, Waqf board. That's what this conclusion is saying. The bill's referral to a joint committee of parliament rather, suggests that its provision will be subject to further scrutiny and debate with potential implications for the balance between state control and religious autonomy in India. So again, if we want to conclude it, we can conclude it by saying that, and as we have iterated it earlier also, that religion is a very sensitive topic and it should be dealt in a very sensitive manner. And that's what is happening right now when the bill is referred to a joint committee. So that's it for today's news of the day. If you like this particular news of the day, do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy channel, and I will be seeing you soon. Take care, be blessed, bye-bye.